It didn't take very long for another news to come out. In fact, less than 24 hours since I created my last video. And the news seems to be part of a pattern recently, and by recently I mean last few years. I do promise, however, if any good piece of news about real estate or economy comes out, I will bring it to you as I find it from the mainstream news, granted, but the numbers will probably be correct. However, don't hold your breath. There may not be too many of those stories as there hadn't been in the recent past. This one touches on something I have talked about before about the builders. You got to understand, with any other profession, so with builders, they know how to build, and they are not financial advisors. They are not even, money managers, hedge fund managers, to be trying to predict where the property cycle, economical cycle, credit cycle are going to go. They're just going to try and obtain finance from, banking or other financial institutions, or they'll try and on-sell or sell their units, for example, off the plan. That way they can get their finance. I think up to about 80% they try and get that way. And if they've got that and secure that finance, they're just going to go ahead and build it. They'll do what they do best. I totally understand that, because if somebody asked me to do anything different to what I do day to day in my day job, I would really rather prefer to do what I do every day. Otherwise I wouldn't really know how to do anything else. So they go ahead until the business model doesn't work anymore, meaning that they can't get enough people to buy off the plan, and or the banks, financial institutions just won't give them the money, which is when everything stops, everything dries up. And as I stated before, everything in the property market, or Ponzi, depends who you ask, works while the market's going up. I mean, that is a definition of a Ponzi scheme, that if it stops going up, it doesn't necessarily have to even go down. It just has to stop going up. The business model, the scheme, does not work anymore. So you are happy to buy a unit off the plan that is worth, say, $500,000, and you're happy to put down $50,000, which is 10%. For that unit, as long as you think that in a year's time or 2 years' time, when that unit is complete, it will be at least $500,000, which is what you ended up paying all up, and ideally it'll be, say, $600,000. If it's going to be $600,000, anyone can make money that way. Everybody's happy. The builder got the deposit, finance, you got your unit. You ended up paying $500,000 in the end, but when you picked up the keys, the unit was worth $600,000. So everybody's happy. But it has to continue to go up. When it starts or stops going up, it's a different story, and this is one of those stories.
The building bust after the boom. Developers feeling the heat, with half of projects stalled or cancelled. The fallout from the property price slump is working its way through developers. Their customers have either disappeared or face increasing problems getting the necessary finance. Residential building projects more than 10 kilometres from the big city centres are particularly vulnerable. With thousands of jobs at stake, the Reserve Bank remains confident that the threat won't derail the economy, but it's a delicate balance. Here's finance correspondent Philip Lasker.
This is becoming a more common sight, half-finished developments dotting the landscape in many states.
Areas of oversupply will see a bit more chaos, we think, in the next 6 to 12 months.
A string of construction projects started at the height of the building boom are reaching completion at a less than ideal time, with property prices falling. It could have been far worse, though, because many developers have taken evasive action since they began the long process to completion more than 3 years ago. Of the projects started in 2015, amid the heat of a building boom, 50% have not reached the construction phase in New South Wales and South Australia. They were either abandoned or delayed. In Victoria and Queensland, a much bigger percentage was put on hold, and every project failed to go ahead in Western Australia. Even so, there are a growing number of developers with finished product finding it more difficult to shift apartments.
Sales rates of 24 to 30 a month are now lucky to be, 1 to 2 a month on a project. So that's the problem. The developers are finding it very hard to get to financial close.
Under normal circumstances, developers need to pre-sell 80% of their apartments to get finance and start building. But with potential buyers finding it more difficult to get a loan, it's enough to send some developers over the edge.
If you're settling a project between now and Christmas time, you'd want to be looking closely at your defaults.
There's one of my clients who's in the process of trying to buy distressed stock, and he has had 2,000 apartments across Australia put to him in different forms. So there is stock out there that you could buy distressed.
Buyers have the upper hand in this market, but not necessarily if they bought an apartment with a deposit 2 or 3 years ago when prices were much higher.
If the circumstances have changed, let's say prices have fallen, then the bank might say, well, I'm now only going to lend you X% rather than the original amount, and the purchaser will have to come up with the extra cash from somewhere.
We'll see people that can't settle due to banking restrictions either forego their deposit and or the developer might take legal action against them under the contract.
But at this stage, most people don't see the property slump ripping through the sector's heart. Many developers saw this coming. They're cashed up, or they can wait, or they've managed to change the zonings on their sites from residential to commercial. Others have sold their sites, and for the most part there are willing buyers funded by foreigners or wealthy Australian families.
We never had a business raising debt for developers 4 years ago. Now, last year alone, total, we did circa $800 million in construction funding. Now, most of that, if not all of that, went offshore. Now, that should have been done by Australian banks.
Luke McIntosh is advising his clients to buy sites cheaply now if they can and get going, because in 2 or 3 years' time, when the projects are completed, demographics will favour them.
35% of millennials still live with their parents. The oldest of millennials are turning 35 this year. So they are the buyer's market. They are the market that developers will be selling into.
Others see important supports still in place, preventing wholesale destruction.
I look at indicators such as unemployment. I look at indicators such as interest rates, net migration, which are 3 key factors which people look at when they look at housing sector, and they're all sitting in very positive levels.
But it's a delicate balance which could easily turn nasty.
That will do for now. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for more videos to come. Thanks again. Talk to you next time.